Okay, so my topic is political propaganda techniques in the fracking industry. And my research question is to take an in-depth view on how big business fracking companies use political propaganda techniques with the controversial issue that is known as fracking. So what is fracking? Fracking is shorthand for hydraulic fracturing, which is a type of drilling that has been used commercially for 65 years. Today, the combination of advanced hydraulic fracturing is horizontal drilling, employing cutting-edge technologies, and is mostly responsible for surging U.S. oil and natural gas production. This process is for, hopefully, to make America energy independent by 2020. A single fracking site can consist of a number of wells, and once the line is 1,000 feet, it is cemented and cased, and the process can begin. And according to Laura Amos of Earthworks, typically a mixture of water proponents and chemicals is pumped into the rock or coal formation, and that's how they fracture the wells and bring out the natural gas. So here I have a picture, and it shows exactly what it does. Here's the land and all this, the water and everything, the tube that they use, and to get to the resource that they have from the well up top. So the land, it's all it is this right here, and everything happens underneath the ground. So the process you can't really see, but it's definitely underground. So now that we have seen what the actual process actually is and what it can do, we could take an in-depth look on how companies use political propaganda techniques to persuade voters and generate money for communities to have fracking in their towns. Chris Faulkner is the author of the book called The Fracking Truth, and he is a supporter of fracking because he is the owner of one of the biggest companies that's located in Texas. And he says that fracking fluid is 99.5% water and sand, and the rest is just a mixture of chemicals. So as part of political propaganda, as he says, it's 99.5% sand and water. That sounds like it's nothing that bad. But on a grand scale, that 0.5% is 40,000 gallons of chemicals. And on a grand scale, that's a lot. And he says, according to Chris Faulkner, he says it's just baby food, that it's household items and chemicals that you can find underneath the sink and that you use to clean your house every day. According to Faulkner, that it is safer to extract this natural gas under the land. It's better for the environment, and it has the same energy compared to oil and coal. But as we found out, his report that was funded by the university that was paying for him released a statement saying that his actual true accounts were false, and that 3.6 and 7.9% of any given fracking well can leak methane into the atmosphere, a far more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. So as they find this out, that his reports and everything were false when he was trying to persuade communities through his propaganda, the University of New York in Buffalo, which was one that was funding Faulkner's fracking sites, actually shut down his entire operation due to the fact that he was lying in his reports. And here is a quote from them. It says, University of New York in Buffalo shuts down a resource society and institute after the Public Accountability Initiative revealed that he had distorted data in a study examining the impact and regulations on fracking. Researchers claim that regulations had reduced the environmental impact of fracking in the state, suggest that drilling could be conducted safely in New York, yet, as the Public Accountability Initiative points out, the report's own data, the rate of major environmental accidents actually increased 36% from 2008 to 2011. And in his initial report, he said the increase can only wouldn't exceed 5%. So they shut him down completely for lying in his reports. My literary review, I'm going to be covering the truth through propaganda, fracademics, which is academics behind fracking, and some uses of propaganda in commercials today. So covering the truth through propaganda. Now I went over a bunch of studies, and I found the best one that's happening. It happens here, and it also happens in Great Britain, other countries today. Jared Mobbs is a land surveyor in Great Britain, and also invalidates a Mackie Stone report, which is just like Chris Faulkner's report, where he lied in his initial reports. But in the UK, their laws are a little different. So in Mackie Stone's report, he suggests that fracking has a lower carbon footprint than other fossil fuels. And he notes this piece of pro-fracking propaganda is used as a deflection from science. And it's just time when the UK anti-fracking movement was starting to build. The report moves on to look at the Science Media Center, whose purpose is to ghostwrite most of their information in journalists. So that leads us to the Guardian letter, which basically says that it's signed by 50 scientists, which says that it's actually safer and more reliable than actual coal. So in order to get people to vote on this in Great Britain, they created a statement saying that, trusted by 50 scientists, 50 out of 51 scientists, that this is going to help Great Britain become energy independent and help their longevity keep pursuing of energy, as in getting it from other countries. But as the report finds out, that all 50 scientists were paid off, and the reports were actually false. They were paid off by the big fracking business companies, and they were false. And they were revealed in the anti-fracking political campaign used in protest, which is called the academics, or the frackademics, which I will get into next. They're linked to the fracking industry in the flow diagram, showing that direct pay each receives from the industry, and funding flows from each fracking company via councils and researching the academics. So when that came out, the fracking businesses had to back down, because they were producing radio advertisements saying that their gas and their coal and their energy, everything that they have is lowering, and by the rate that they're lowering, in a couple years they'd have no more energy. So we need to vote now, which was completely false in their initial reports. The frackademics. This is academics of fracking companies, of what they used in Pennsylvania. So here in 2009-2011, there's led a series of 3 studies that promised huge economic gains for the state of Pennsylvania from hydraulic fracturing. Founded on questionable assumptions about indirect economic effects on fracking, it wasn't until a study showed that under scrutiny from the environmental group that the shale correlation of oil and gas companies funded the reports. And Penn State widely started beginning an investigation on how their natural gas boom would support the communities of the state. And here it says, the dean of Penn State's College's Earth and Mineral Sciences exonerated the flaws in the reports of writing about how presented to the public, saying they may well have crossed the line between policy analysis and policy advocacy. In 2012, Penn State published a pro-fracking study at the University of Buffalo containing claims that the rate of environmental impacts from fracking were on the decline based on a simple math error. But as we learned earlier, the University of New York in Buffalo shut down their actual department for this because due to false information in their reports. So as we find out here, in the rate of major impacts increased by 36%, actually, it was increased by 36% and not on the decline. So therefore, in their propaganda technique, they were found to be considered liars because they were giving out false information to generate votes so communities can allow these companies to come in and produce this natural gas. Political fracking, the use of propaganda. So we have subliminal messages and called the energy election to get people to vote now. There's slogans like, I am an energy voter, which is saying that you want to vote for energy to help America become a better place. So here we have a local ad. It says, buy local fracking, it does a state good. Which in turn, it may have an upside, but the downside is that all the chemicals and everything that they do leave in the ground and what they do afterwards. So in these propaganda techniques, they tell you what the good could come out of it, but what they don't tell you is the actual academics beside the academics that are left afterwards about what can actually happen and what does happen. So here, my methodologies I found real-life testimonials of people in Ohio. and they're called the Sheffield stories. The Sheffield stories are blogs or columns that are created by people who are directly affected by this process of fracking. And here we have a real-life testimonial from a woman that lives in Ohio. She said, and her name is Jamie Frederick, and she said, and I quote, she discovered barium, strontium, and toluene, which are other chemicals that are left after the fracking wells, there's 25 drilling wells began operating a mile from her home. She was able to, actually, this is not a picture of her, but she was actually able to light her water on fire. She lost, her husband came down with an illness. She lost her husband that was due to an illness, but most of the illnesses that have come from fracking, it falls in the same category. It hasn't been proven scientifically, but it's more of an assumption. She lost numerous farm animals and a couple of her dogs, and she experienced several illnesses herself, and saying her property value was reduced to nothing. So as you can see here, with the chemicals that are in their water from the contaminated groundwater due to fracking, she initially states that when the vote came across, none of these side effects were ever stated. It was all just upside. So it got everybody really excited about voting for it to bring more people and money into their town. But what they didn't say is that if the process does leak, that you could light your water on fire because of the gases in it, that you couldn't wash yourself with it. You could not drink it. And nobody really knew that until it actually happened, and they're already there. These are powering anti-fracking commercials to come about. So every time there's a vote, when the pro-fracking commercials do come out and the propaganda, the Sheffield stories are actually put into the other side to make so people have both views instead of just one. So these are to actually see actual counts. So this is an actual picture. This is what happened. This is before the land, and this was after they were all said and done. Because any fracking site can contain numerous wells, up to 35 wells. So as you can see here, luscious green land, as you look back, it's nothing but a wasteland anymore. And nobody really knows that. All they hear is the upside and the money that they could have brought in. Propaganda techniques. These are the techniques that I have found through my results of the techniques that big companies use. So here we are. We go to flag waving. And flag waving, first I will give you my definition of what it is. Flag waving is a technique to gain voters to vote on fracking, and flag waving is an attempt to justify an action on the grounds that doing so will make one more patriotic, or in some way benefit a group or country or idea. The feeling of patriotism in this technique attempts to inspire, may not necessarily diminish, entirely omit one's capability for a rational examination of the matter in question. So here we are, we have a commercial that aired in July of 2015, a pro-fracking commercial aired in Colorado. And it depicts a family who allowed fracking to conduct its process on their land because it's safe and good for our environment. So I will play this for you.
Jason's grandparents built this ranch, and we worked hard to keep it in the family. So we do our best to protect what's ours. With all the stories out there, some people were surprised that we allowed fracking on our land. But we talked with experts and learned the facts about drilling for oil and natural gas. And guess what? It's safe. Safe for our land, our water, and the air. When you know the facts, you understand why we need this now and for the future.
Learn the facts at energyfromshale.org.
Now, as you can see there, that is a form of flag waving. Although the American flag was not in it, you can see that they own a farm. They're cowboys, which is like the true, like an American icon. Playing horseshoes, which is another thing. And they say that, she says that it is safe. And to some extent that it is, but what they don't say is the actual downside of it, of what could happen and what has mostly happened. Which brings me to my next propaganda technique. is called Milieu control. And Milieu control is an attempt to control a social environment and ideas through the use of social pleasure. So here Chevron had their own fracking site in this community, and they promised them numerous things. And on February 11, 2014, a Chevron-owned fracking well exploded in Bobtown, Pennsylvania. The explosion that killed one man and burned hot for 5 straight days, which contaminated the community's groundwater, left a haze in the sky, which was once a small town community that was really tight-knit, became very dispersed and spread out due to the fact that all these chemicals were in their groundwater coming into their houses due to the explosion. So what does Chevron do about this explosion? Well, in order to ease the minds of other people and basically say that they were sorry for blowing up half their town, they gave them a coupon for a free pizza and a drink at the local Domino's. So in other words, Milieu control is to control the social environment and ideas through the use of social pleasure. So here Chevron felt that if we give them a free pizza and a drink, it'll say that we're sorry and keep their image about us, keep their image not bad about us. But in reality, a pizza is probably not okay for destroying half a town. Intentional vagueness is generalities that are deliberately vague so that an audience may supply its own interpretations. The intention is to move the audience by use of undefined phrases without analyzing their validity or attempting to determine their resemblance or application. This intent is to cause people to draw their own interpretation rather than simply being presented with an explicit idea. So here we have a video that says smart moms vote on fracking for a better future. So basically, if you are a smart mom or consider yourself a smart mother, then you will vote on fracking. And here's the commercial.
It's funny when you think about the industry as a whole, and its demise has been predicted so many times over the last 50 years. I mean, even growing up, my dad
we're going to run out of oil.
Yeah, we're going to run out of oil, and then you fall in love with geology, and you're like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? And here I am in the natural gas industry, because now we can fit with, the technology's there to extract the hydrocarbons from the ground.
I got into the geosciences because I liked history. I liked rocks. I was sort of a nerdy kid. I had a rock collection.
Both of our families were in the oil and gas industry, and Ned's dad actually wrote textbooks. My dad was an independent geologist, so we both had kind of a common upbringing, both from big families. And
Yeah, I was born in Houston, and Andre was born in Fort Worth.
I mean, it matters to us what goes on in our own backyard. And as a geologist, I feel incredibly safe that the natural gas industry is simply in my backyard.
Companies want to be safe. We want to protect the environment.
And that's what we're doing. Annette and I are both moms, and we want to protect our children and our environment more than anybody. We're from here. We love Texas. And I think the more you learn, the more comfortable you're going to be with it, and you're going to be as confident as we are that our kids are safe and we're safe.
I'm Annette Borkowski. I'm a geophysicist,
I'm Andre Griffin. I'm a geologist,
and I'm powering progress.
in the Barnett.
And as for those were my results that I found through analyzing my own research, and through research that I found on the internet. In conclusion, there are numerous ads out there that are for fracking and what it can do for the U.S. in the long run. But the ads that are against fracking and telling you the actual truths of what can be left behind and show you the actual events that could happen. And here's another before and after picture, and here is what it looks like on top of the land. Protesters saying don't frack with our water so they can continue to drink it and stuff like that. The slogan, The Fracking Truth, which is a book that was written for pro-fracking purposes. The industry is responsible responsible in the limelight to expose the dangers of what fracking actually does to communities that are affected by this process. So although it is a book title, it is also a headline for a anti-fracking group that does travel to swing states as voters tend to start voting on the energy election. And As big business tries to feed false information to the media and citizens of the world of how fracking can be beneficial to our community in the long run, they state only the pros of their nature. Big business has said America can become energy independent by 2020, or natural gas is safer for the environment and better for our atmosphere. Although these accounts that pro-fracking companies make can be true, they hide through propaganda and tries to use bandwagon techniques and logical fallacies to persuade voters and communities around them. They do not mention the hazardous chemicals that are being put into the earth that contaminate fresh and groundwater that many communities get their drinking water from. More than 30% of these chemicals are left in the earth and are non-biodegradable. So the next time you see a fracking ballot in your town, make sure you know the facts of the upside and downside of what can actually happen. And here's my sources.
Any questions for